Welcome to what's going to be a very fast-paced panel. And with any panel, if anyone's ever heard me moderate a panel, I love this to be about you. You as the audience are going to be inspired and educated and walk away from this with some top tips. This is a blueprint, and it's a blueprint of how to really focus on purpose-driven strategies, how to do good. And I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by 4 incredibly strong women and leading experts from Samsung Ads, from GumGum, from Tigress and Candice Marie. Please welcome Jess Aylett. We've got Meera, we've got Antonia Faulkner, and we've got Candice Marie. Please join me up here and give them a round of applause as they come on here. Thank you very much. Lovely. Please take a seat. Amazing. I think we've got some microphones coming for you in a second. We've got one there, and I think one there. So welcome to everybody. And just to let you know, audience, you are my fifth member. Oh my goodness, my maths is terrible this morning. I'm going to be coming to you for a question in a minute. So I'm going to come to you for a few. But I want you to be thinking about one brand that really resonates to you or that you admire for authentic storytelling. So I'm going to ask you that in a minute, but I thought I'd better be fair and give you advance warning. So I won't be as fair to you all, though, because I'm going to give you a challenge. Each one of you, in 60 seconds or less, has to say your name, your company, and what made you start in advertising to see if you can do it. Antonia, you're up first. Go.
Hi, I'm Antonia. I work at Samsung Ads. We are the media division of Samsung. And when I think back to my younger self and why I went into advertising, it's definitely the glamour. It was cool, it was creative. And it might have also been the promise of a martini lunch. I would say, looking a few years to where I am today, it fulfilled all its promises and more. Not as many martini lunches as I would have liked, but everything else has been beyond all my expectations.
Amazing. Candice.
My name is Candice Marie. I am a social media strategist and founder of Candice Marie Consulting, as well as founder of Black in Corporate, which is a nonprofit amplifying Black voices behind corporate walls where we feel change is needed most. I really joined this space because I love storytelling, and I feel like it not only shifts the narrative, but also shifts, that conversation that's happening internally. And for me, I found so much beauty in that.
You're so good at this challenge. I should have made it harder and done 45. Meera, you're up next.
Yeah. I'm Meera Chandra, and I'm a founder of Tigress, said twice. So I knew from when I was a kid that I wanted to be a writer. I used to write poems. I used to spoof lyrics of famous songs into school anthems. So I knew I was going to be a writer, and I was too naughty to be a journalist. So I decided I'll get into advertising. So that's what we do now. We are in digital advertising.
Perfect. Take us home, Jess.
60 seconds or less, right, let's go. Be concise. I'm Jess, I'm the head of sales at GumGum. Pretty much like you ladies. I think I started because of the glamour, the creativity. I always knew I wanted to be in that space. I probably just didn't know where I would end up, and obviously now being at GumGum. But yeah, I think I've always wanted to do it, always wanted to be in it. Love a martini lunch like the next person.
Yeah, yes, he's going to make that happen. Perfect. They did incredibly well there. Right, it's very rare that I actually ask all 4 of you one question because I love to mix it up. But this one's really important because this is the blueprint we're trying to provide today. What does it mean for a brand to be truly purpose-driven? And I wonder if it can be one thing or many things. Antonia, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think in very simple terms, it cannot be cosmetic. It has to run through the entire company. And I think a good test for yourself is if your employees don't believe it, then you're not ready to go to market with it. So I think you start internally, get your employees on board, make sure it's running through everything you do, and then comes the marketing.
I think it's perfect. It's baking it in your DNA, which is great. Candice, you're going to come at it from a different angle, I imagine. But what do you think?
Well, I think it's being value-driven, and so not only having the employees be on board, but also reflect what the message that you're sending. So I can't talk about it when I don't reflect the actual storytelling within, and I'm trying to tell that story to my consumers outside of that.
And for you, Meera, same question, but also thinking about how it hits the mark, how authenticity hits the mark without just being performative. So same question, but different angle.
So many people use it as a garnish, and like you said, it's supposed to be baked into this entire system. And the only way I think we can do this is to show them that it's no longer a nice to do thing. It's become a brand imperative. If you want to stay alive and stay in business, you must showcase your purpose.
Perfect. And Jess?
I think
do you think?
similar to everyone, but I think the only other thing I'd probably mention is I think continuous action. You have to back up what you're doing, not just once, not just twice, but continuously. Otherwise, to your point, you're not actually doing what you're saying you're doing.
Perfect. And I'm going to come next. I want to come to Meera and Candice. I'd like to give them prior warning of who I'm coming to. So we know that consumers value authenticity and also sustainability, inclusivity, transparency. They embrace that. But Meera, to you, what do you think is the most important one, or what is the most important one for your customer base? For what
I
you
think it's transparency. I
Okay.
think transparency is the first step. You know, customers like to see the flaws in a brand. They are endeared by flaws in a brand. They feel that the brand is authentic and truthful. If it confesses to a couple of things it cannot do. So I think being transparent with your customer endears you to your customer, and it makes them realize that they align with your purpose.
And I think, Candice, I mean, again, it's going to be interesting. So how do you, working with influencers, you're coming at this from what influences the brands?
I feel like more inclusivity is what comes first. A lot of times, before I go out and I'm speaking to someone, if you don't see a representation of yourself, you know, I can't even really speak to that audience. So inclusivity naturally comes first, maybe in my line of work, just because maybe the foundation of my job and like the company that I've built and the jobs that I've had have been built on, you know, equity and inclusion and having that foundation. I want to see myself before you start speaking to me. So for me, before even the message starts, I want to be able to see it.
And I think what's interesting is that companies really need to think about all of those things are important. Maybe there's one that stands out. Actually, what I'd love to come just to you is thinking then about, okay, that's the audience, but let's look at the content. What defines quality content? You know, is it, I don't know, audience mindset or creative excellence? Or when we're looking at how they portray themselves as a brand through their content, what's most important?
I think it's threefold. I think you need good, well, I mean, GumGum's obviously built around this, and the whole mindset graph, what we've built is you need great creative and serving it to the right audience in the right context at the right time. It's all about making sure that you've got all of those things together. It's an integral part. You can't have one without the other. You can have, if you have the best creative in the world, but you put it in the wrong context, someone's not going to look at it. You can, and vice versa. So I think for me, it's all three. You need good creative, context, and attention.
And I think, Antonia, for you, obviously Samsung Ads has got multiple channels and formats and different screens. What's the impact of that, and how do you define quality content through those channels?
So I think the really interesting shift that we've seen is that this idea of quality content is subjective. So what I think is good quality, someone else might not. And so I think the shift has really been around, I think, as media owners or publishers or marketeers, historically we have pushed consumers, you should like this, you should watch this, you should buy this. And I think it's completely shifted, and consumers are going and finding the things they want and telling us, this is what I want to watch. And so what we have traditionally seen, so we have a streaming service, and then, you know, what we thought initially is like traditional TV content that belongs on the TV. We've seen that actually our viewers are like, well, I actually want to watch this kind of content. And you might not think that qualifies as quality, but that's what we want to watch. And actually shows like Diary of a CEO, which is a podcast essentially that's come to TV, is like one of our top performing shows on the TV. And so I think it's really, as marketeers, we have to, and this is where things like data is so important, we have to understand what consumers want. They are very much in control.
So for you, Candice, obviously there's social media, and thank you, Antonia, for that, because then I think the social has a harder job of being able to define or produce quality content, or am I wrong?
Well, everything you were saying, like, I agree with, even from a social media perspective. Like, a lot of times the consumer wants to tell you what they want, and if you are, you know, a lot of times we're coming up from the idea from a corporate standpoint, we're going to tell you, we're going to serve you this thing, versus like, I want to listen to the consumer and find out, what do you find interest in? And a lot of times it's different from what this corporate situation looks like. And also, you know, it kind of comes back, I'm going back to like inclusivity, when you don't reflect it internally, you're basically saying like, oh, I know what you want, and you don't understand the culture, you don't understand the differences, what everyone's version of quality is also different depending on their background, their viewpoint. All of those things are going to change. So I definitely feel like there's that alignment still when it comes to social media as well.
And for you, Meera, because it's interesting that I really feel like we're all saying consumer first, listen to the data, listen to what they want. Are you finding that Tigress?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, it's not just consumers, it's your employees, it's your partners, it's your other stakeholders. It's more stakeholder value that you should be looking at than shareholder value.
Perfect. So I'm going to come to the audience in one moment, so be thinking of a good brand that you love for their storytelling. But Jess, who's got it wrong? Are there any brands, or are there any brands, not necessarily brands, because that would be unfair, because we're on video and we might be sued.
I was going to say, I'm
but
not naming names.
I'm not that cruel. Let's think about when authenticity goes wrong, when people aren't inclusive, when people aren't transparent. What goes wrong? What's happening?
I think, listen, we're all humans. Brands are built by humans. Like, we humans make mistakes. I think it's owning it, being accountable and acknowledging it. I think, actually, to your point earlier about the transparency, people make mistakes. Brands are allowed to make mistakes. It's how you own it, and it's how you reshape it and do good off the back of it.
Perfect. And we love to not dwell on what goes wrong. We love to dwell on what goes right. Can anyone be brave here and put their hands up if they can say of one brand that they really feel stands out for authentic storytelling or getting it right? Anyone brave enough here and you can tell me the name of their brand? Let's have a look. I've got one at the front here. Hello.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Ezene. I actually lead our inclusive experience consultancy at VML, so I have tons of examples. I won't be selfish, so I'll do one that we work with and then one that is a favorite of mine. So one I think that's doing a great job is IKEA. I think thinking about like sustainability, showing the different perspectives of what family looks like, what building a home looks like. I think they do a great job. And the other one that I always love too is P&G. I think, again, just thinking about family dynamics and the quality of the storytelling that they're showing feels very organic, feels very authentic. All the things that the ladies are saying today, I think I find that in both of those brands today.
Just give her a round of applause, because actually putting your hand up is incredibly brave, and you were very eloquent. You can come on my panel next time as well. So listen, I want to go on to, we touched on what goes wrong, but I think I want to just really address pitfalls to avoid, especially, like, let me give two examples: greenwashing, woke washing. Let's hope we're not seeing any of that in Cannes. Is there any that really need avoiding? And I'm really putting this out as to who would like to answer that, of some advice on pitfalls to avoid.
You mentioned just owning to those mistakes, because at the end of the day, we all are human and things happen. I feel like things go really wrong when those mistakes aren't owned quickly. Yeah. It's like when you move in quickly and are able to own that, people can respect that. But I feel like some companies double down on the wrong, and then it's just chaotic. You know, you could have fixed it so much sooner versus you let this time now go by and you're like doubling down, and finally, you know, now you have to put together a whole PR strategy and all these different things. But I think being quick to own that mistake is something that is okay to do.
Definitely.
I think also just consistency. I think we've said it the whole way through. Like, you have to go from the inside out. To get consumers to believe and trust and believe in what you're doing, you have to start internally. Like, you have to get your employees to believe it and to be part of that mission. I think I always use the example of like International Women's Day. You'll have big brands doing amazing social posts and big, like, you know, campaigns, advertising campaigns, and really putting themselves out there to be at the front of it. But actually, if you dig a little bit deeper and you look internally, there's massive like gender pay gap. You have to go the whole way through the funnel, and that consistency of what your message is, and then actually proving that with your action.
I just wanted to add a little
Meera.
bit. There's a paper in Harvard Business Review done by a person called Simon Zadek, who says how organizations are going up the curve in learning this whole thing. They start with being defensive. I haven't broken it, so why should I fix it? And then, if you want me to comply, let me do the bare minimum to comply. And then it comes to bite them in the brand. So they say, hey, let's get some action going. And then they become strategic about it. And then when they're so thrilled with it, they want the whole world to adopt it. So that's the curve all brands go through.
I think that's very fair as well. And I think it's a lesson for anyone of that. Jess, you mentioned International Women's Day, and please, companies, don't fall into the trap of the gender pay gap, because it's so important. Meera, you've got the mic still, so I'm going to ask you, storytelling is something that, as I think Antonia, you were talking about, baked into the DNA from the team down, but it also should reflect in your storytelling. Are there any campaigns at Tigress that you can just touch on briefly that successfully connected with the audience?
I can think of one that we collaborated with a bunch of singer-songwriters in Berlin, and they had identified that a lot of refugees coming in were able to sing brilliantly. So we created singles out of all their songs, put it on a website, created mashups with other leading artists as well, and put that up on the website. Tied up with World Food Program, for every download of every song, 2 meals would go to that person. So the beauty of it was, even a meal was such a luxury in those days. And just by putting up their work, their own talent, we managed to get them food to eat. It was called Music is the Food of Love.
And that is doing good. I mean, just give her a round of applause, because that's the whole point of this. And that is the power of storytelling. And Antonia, you're going to get past the mic now, because I've got to come to CTV and how easy it is, or how it works well when storytelling is done well on CTV campaigns. So switching it up a bit.
Well, so what I think is interesting about CTV is TV advertising has been the same forever.
Yeah.
It's a video ad. It's the length of it might change, but that's about it. And we've recently seen maybe some more, things like adding a QR code. Wow, that was revolutionary. But the reality is, TVs today, like smart TVs, are that same evolution that happened with smartphones. Like, they're fundamentally changing, which means that now, when people ask me where we're on the CTV journey, I say right at the beginning. I think the possibilities are huge, and then the space for creativity is huge. A TV ad doesn't need to be a video. Like, we recently launched games. So you know how everybody's like, Candy Crush made us all gamers. Everybody's a gamer now. Well, you can have that on a TV. So you can have, like, instead of an ad break, have a short ad, a short game. So think, especially with purpose marketing, how your brand can really engage with its audience, interact with its audience beyond just a video, and really make them and bring them in. So whether it's a game or something else, thankfully I'm not the genius behind the ideas of my company or any company, but I think there's so much possibility in this space, and that whole dynamic can be reimagined.
Well, you touched on it then, because this was about that games break, for example, was led by the consumers and how they interact within games. And I'm going to ask the audience to do something for me, because I think we're all consumers ourselves. And I want you, on a scale of 1 to 5, using your magic fingers, 1 being low, I'm going to do it there, 1 being low and 5 being high. How important is, say, purpose and storytelling in how you choose a brand? And you can be honest if you think, no, I actually go based on price or what's cool or whatever. But just for the purpose of this, how important is purpose to you? Fingers, 1 to 5. So it's 4, we've got some 4s, we've got some 5s, we've got some 3s. So it is important, and I think that's one thing we have to remember, is listen to the consumers as to what they need. And yes, factors like how trendy it is, how much it costs, are going to come into play. And what we as the advertising industry then have to do is look at impact and measurement, because it does need to work. So my final 3 questions are going to be around that. So let me come to Meera for you first. You're going to take back the mic. What metrics do you think work when it comes to purpose-driven campaigns, to show that they are actually working? So the consumers want it. How do we, the advertising industry, show it works?
Yeah. So there's, as far as I know, there's only one metric that's really been tried and tested, which is Edelman's trust barometer, which actually tells you how much the consumer trusts the communication that you have put out, and therefore the brand. But I increasingly find that all companies seem to be measuring it on what has it done to my bottom line. So, there's a disconnect there, because on one side you want the empathy and the love and the affinity of your customer. On the other side, you're chasing money. So there has to be a middle ground, and there is, to my mind, no measuring system for that.
And it has to often be about performance as well. Jess, from your perspective, metrics that matter, showing purpose works?
I think I have to agree. I don't know if there is actually a one-stop shop that we've got yet, but I think if your purpose is clear and it's done correctly, you will shift perception and that brand affinity, and that is the only way that you can measure it successfully.
Well, if we then I'm going to come to Candice for this one, because you talked about the brands there and how you respond to brands. So Candice, how do conscious consumers, how do they respond to brands that align with their values? What do you see?
I feel like they are very much, that trust is there, like that community is there. So like you feel that sense of community when that value and it's purpose driven and it reflects what is, internally. I think even flipping that, if you don't really reflect that value, or you're speaking that you reflect these values, and you go on and you do things that, you know, are the opposite or quite opposite, that causes the audience to disengage or come back. And I feel like the consumer is so smart that not only will they disengage, they will convince others to disengage as well and talk about that.
Yeah, definitely don't underestimate the consumer. And my penultimate question, actually, because I think often we're in Cannes, it tends to be big brands here. We had the incredible Bridget from Spotify up here, but there's a lot of small companies that come here and say, I've got limited budgets. How do I invest that and still deliver purpose-driven marketing and purpose-driven branding and make it count and do good with small budgets? Meera, you've taken the mic.
Yeah, I've always felt that a smaller budget makes your idea sharper. And I really believe that if your idea is sharp, you do not need a large budget. So it's like, if you have a sharp nail, you don't need a heavy hammer. And even while you have a big budget, if you have it mentally in your mind, then you get an idea which is so cutting edge that it really fulfills its job with half the money. So small budgets are not a problem. It's not the reason why people are not doing purpose.
Can I
Yeah,
say
go,
something too
Candice,
as well?
please do.
I feel like coming from a small business as well, something that I feel like I have the advantage over is that I'm coming from a personal story too, which kind of hits home. I feel like a lot of times the larger companies trying to tell a story that might feel, you know, not as authentic because it's such a large voice, but coming from more like a smaller company, our mission, our story is so specific and it feels more personal, so you can connect with the consumer a little bit easier.
So small but perfectly formed, it works, and whatever your budgets, you can still do good. And I'm going to get you all to take us home with one final question, which is, I'm going to come to you, Antonia, first. One actionable step that we can equip our lovely guests here today that any brand can take in being able to shift towards purpose-driven storytelling. So one tip.
So this is not my idea. I happened to read about it and it really resonated with me that it's less about acquiring customers versus building communities. And I think that's the big difference.
Amazing, love that. Less about acquiring customers and more about building communities. Perfect, Antonia.
And then I'm going to build
Candice.
on that
Okay,
to
this is
not
gonna be good. It's
to
building.
elevate your community too as well. So like elevating and reflecting that community internally.
Perfect. Build, elevate, mirror.
So we all think that we have to shift attitude to shift behavior. If we just try to shift behavior quite disruptively, you'll automatically shift the attitude. And I just want to shout out to my country because we are the only government that has mandated a 2% use of profit in large companies towards corporate social responsibility. And that has shifted the attitude because it has mandated the behavior.
Great stuff. Thank you, Jess. Take us home. One final tip. Blow us away.
Oh, pressure. I think we need to listen. I think we need to really listen and listen to what people are saying and our consumers. Like, we're all consumers, not just marketeers in this room. We want to be listened to. We want to feel like we're being heard. So I think to build on what you guys said, it's just to take stock and listen.
Amazing, thank you. And I want to say a big thank you to Stuti and Payal for putting on this incredible event and giving a platform for this agenda, for this topic. So thank you, Payal, Stuti, and a big thank you to Antonia, to Candice, to Meera, and to Jess. Thank you very much.